We are so excited that you took some time out of your day to spend with myself and Kelly. We're going to be talking today about building your 2024 content windmill for endless marketing energy. I was just talking to someone yesterday on the podcast that I help co-host. He was an agency owner, and he was like, man, like I realized when I started my business, I really probably should have paid a little bit more attention to in that marketing class as a part of what I have to do for my business. And I feel like that is probably a position that many of you have been in if you are a business owner. And even as someone who works in marketing, you're always probably looking for new strategy. So I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Hannah Hood. I'm a virtual CFO here with Summit Virtual CFO by Anders. I also help co-host the podcast, The Young CPA Success Show. Y'all might be probably are in our target audience, but I do feel like we have some really good content going over there. So I invite you to take a listen, just see what there is to offer there as well. And I am joined today by Kelly Schuknecht. She is our director of marketing, and I'm so excited that you're here with me today, Kelly. I'm going to cover a couple of housekeeping items. We're going to invite you to please use the question function in this Zoom session. So you'll see there's a Q&A section. There's also a chat feature as well. So certainly drop any questions you have as you go in the chat. I'll be helping monitor both of those features. Replay slides and an email will be sent 2 days after this event ends. So you'll get a replay of the video. You'll get a slide of these slides as well. So just know you'll have that coming to you within a couple of business days. I want to share a little bit about our firm and where we've started and the journey that we've taken to get to the point that we're at now. We started as a traditional CPA firm doing audit, tax, things of that nature in 2002. Jody Grundon and Adam Hale, you'll see respectively in the picture here on the timeline, they started our firm. In 2004, we started offering CFO and back office accounting services and shifted in 2013 to a fully distributed firm. At that time as well, we really started to take a dive into our first vertical and niche, which is digital agencies. In 2022, Summit joined Anders CPAs and Advisors via a merger. They are a regional firm out of St. Louis. And now we are represented as ourselves as Summit Virtual CFO by Anders. So we have evolved and grown over the years, and that has brought us to where we are now. And our presenter, like I said, is Kelly Schuknecht. She's our Virtual CFO Director of Marketing, but I'll let her introduce herself to y'all.
Yeah, well, thank you, Hannah. I am super excited to talk about content marketing. It's one of my favorite topics. So thank you for having me on. I want to start with just three fun facts about me, to get to know me a little bit. My first is that I ran a marathon this summer, and I feel like I only get to hold on to that little piece of, that fun fact about me for so long until it just becomes old.
That is like, you deserve a round of applause for many, many years to come. Like, that's fantastic. I love that.
It was my first and probably my only, but I, wanted to share that I did it, right? So, so you and I, Hannah, have bonded over books before.
Yes.
So I wanted to share a book that I have that I read recently that I really enjoyed. I used to work in publishing, and I'm a big reader. So The Drowning Woman was one of my favorites this summer. While I was training for the marathon, I was listening to a lot of audiobooks, and this is one I listened to on audio, could not put it down. I love asking for reading recommendations. So if anyone in our audience has any reading recommendations, anything fiction or nonfiction that you've read recently that you want to share, please do in the comments or in the questions function. How about you, Hannah? Anything you read recently that you enjoyed?
So right now I have been listening to rereading, but listening to it on Audible, the Harry Potter series.
Okay, never read
I
those.
read them as they were coming out, and it's been years since I read them. So what I've been doing is I've been listening to one and then watching the movie right after I
Nice.
get done. So that has been recent on my list, but like my love runs deep for Colleen Hoover and her
Yes, yes.
books, and It Ends With Us, and that dual series of books. So anything by her is always a
Yes.
recommendation for me.
Yes. I read a few of hers this summer too. So yes,
Yes.
I love Colleen Hoover. My third fun fact about me is this is the view from my house. This is the view from my deck. And I have worked remotely for 16 years. And because of that, I have gotten to live in the most beautiful place in the world. I believe I might be a little bit biased, but I think it's pretty amazing. So
I agree.
I love also talking about remote work and just being an advocate for remote work. We are now, like you said earlier, Hannah, we have a hybrid environment, but I still get to be on the remote team and work remotely. So, yeah, so three little facts about me. Um, I'd like to know now, you know a little bit about me. I'd like to get to know a little bit about our audience. So, for those of you who are here, I'd love to know what is the size of your marketing team? Are you a DIY owner, the owner of the firm, or excuse me, the owner of the company doing your own marketing? Or do you have a marketing team? Maybe it's one person or two or more. Will help just as I'm talking to kind of talk specifically to you and your specific needs. So if you're willing to share that, would love to get that information from you. And you know, we really want to have you ask questions during this so that we can speak directly to what questions you have. So feel free at any time to put things in the Q&A function. I know Hannah mentioned that. I just want to reiterate that you know we'd love to hear what questions you have while we're talking. So elephant in the room. I wanted to address this because I think that you know, I am the marketing director for an accounting firm, and our audience here today is marketing companies, right? So why am I talking to marketing companies about marketing their companies? And the reason that we picked this topic was because we Summit provides virtual CFO services for digital agencies. And so we work with a lot of digital agency clients, and I have actually been pulled into the meeting. So the CFO is meeting with the client. The client is experiencing some sort of issue, whether it's maybe the pipeline is low. They just feel like maybe things are kind of like stale in marketing. Things have kind of plateaued, and they have brought me in to kind of help, you know, give a fresh perspective and, you know, just talk with the client about, you know, what are some ideas. And we've had some really great brainstorming sessions, you know, talking through things. And I think it's often a case of the cobbler's children have no shoes. Hannah, do you know what
Mhm.
this means? This
I
isn't like
do.
an old person thing that I
No, it's
say, right? Like,
you're
okay.
not old. No, I do know what this means. Yes.
Okay, okay. Um, so you know, we have digital agency clients, and they know what they're doing, right? They know
Mhm.
how to market their clients' companies. They're you know building websites, they're doing SEO work, you know, whatever the area of marketing they help their clients with. They know what they're doing, but often it's really hard to look at themselves and to know how to market themselves. And so that's what I found through the conversations. I've come in to just kind of help again, like bring that fresh perspective, right? And a lot of times, what comes up in those conversations is what I usually refer to as a content engine. For the sake of this presentation, we're talking about a content windmill, and I'll explain that. But you know, we get into this conversation about it and how we can really repurpose a lot of our content and get a lot more out of it than we currently do. For me, you know, when I came on with Summit, I've been with Summit for 6 years. I started, technically, I just hit my 5-year anniversary, but I started as a contractor for a year. I was the first employee then in the marketing department. And when I came on, you know, I saw the need for creating content and getting content out there. I also, you know, it's a challenge. I was faced with this challenge of like, how do we get content out there? Especially being, you know, I was the one who didn't have the financial background, wasn't the CFO, but I'm trying to figure out ways of getting content out there, fresh perspectives, get things out there on you know a more regular basis. And so one of the things that I kind of implemented within the team current or you know to start, I was a team of one and started figuring out ways to repurpose our content as much as possible and create content out of seemingly nothing. And now I have a team of 8+ people, eight plus other individual or independent contractors. A few contractors that we work with. So went from one person trying to do all the things to now having team members who are doing different pieces of all of that. But I was able to kind of be very efficient with my own time. And now I'm fortunate to have a team who is able to do a lot of the repurposing for me. But what I'm going to talk about is kind of how to go from the person of one to, being able to do more with the content that you have.
You found that in that person of one scenario, because I feel like maybe that is a place that especially owners can relate to being in, that you, even in your role being in marketing, were faced with like some content decision fatigue whenever you're in that, because you're
Yeah.
like got this pressure to like constantly put things out and be present. Is that something that you've seen even in those conversations you're having when you're brought in by the CFOs?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, when I say, I came on, I was the one person, right? But and Summit has been around for 20 plus years, right? So Summit had a website, we had a blog, we had a lot of SEO power from the blog already because we've been blogging consistently for years. And Jody Grundon, one of our co-founders, was going out and doing speaking events, and he was presenting. There was some podcast interviews that he had done, right? So I had a starting point of that, even though I didn't have the knowledge. I had some of the things that Jody had done that I could work with, right? And then I could take that and start repurposing it. But yeah, starting at you have to start somewhere. I didn't have the knowledge, but I had access to the knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
and it's even more challenging being the person who has the knowledge and trying to run your business or run your team or whatever you're doing and trying to do all that. But it's challenging no matter which position you're in to regularly come up with new ideas and get that content out there on a regular basis. I mean, we all know, right, that we've got to get content out there, that if we want to grab our audience's attention, we've got to get that content out there, whether it's social media, podcasts, all of these things, right? And that woman in the middle just going like tearing her hair out, like this is just there's so many things we can be doing with our time. And for me, being the designated marketing person, I'm fortunate because I can spend the time on it, right? But for a business owner trying to do all of these things, where do I focus my energy? And I think, it can just be super overwhelming, right? And so,
Mm-hmm.
so what we need is that content windmill, right? That sustainable way to take what we have and generate more and make it, efficient and reach a larger audience with what we're able to do.
And I want to share what Melanie just put in the Q&A. She said, I'm a one-person team at JCG. I'm very new at this. I'm doing more local marketing. Some days I find myself very lost and don't know where to start. Is that a normal feeling? All the advice is much appreciated.
Yes, absolutely normal feeling. So a lot of times, I mentioned I talk to our marketing firm clients. I also talk with a lot of accounting firm owners who similar situation. It's like they're running their firm. They're trying to, should I be doing a blog? Should I be doing speaking events? Should I be writing articles? Should I be doing a social media actively? Like, yeah, it's hard to know where to start, right? And I'll get into, starting with what you have and where to go from there. Um, so content, okay, so I have to tell you, I always have referred to what we do as a content engine.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were sitting down to put together the slides for this presentation, I was like looking at images and trying to find some images to fit kind of some of the messaging I wanted to have. And I was like, okay, so an engine, it's it's big and it's powerful and it's sexy, but I was telling my team, I'm like, but what's that like thing on a farm that like moves the water, like it moves the water from one place to somewhere else, right? And they're like, what? And I'm like, it's it, that it's like it moves water. It's like a farming thing. Like I could not think of like what it was. And I did not have windmill in my mind, but I was like, it's like it moves water around. And we had to do a little bit of research. But I spent a little bit of my adult life in Iowa, and I think this is where I had it in my brain somewhere that there's an area in Northwest Iowa where a lot of Dutch people settled, and there's a lot of these Dutch windmills. So this is a Dutch windmill, and so I want to play a video for us, and it's just a couple minutes, but it's kind of like behind the scenes of this windmill, and this is why I picked this as the title rather than an engine. Let me bring this up here.
In the Netherlands, people have always found ingenious ways to live
Can you hear it,
near
Hannah?
and
Mm-hmm.
below the
Okay.
water.
We've always been a country on the edge of the water. We've also always lived in a land that gets flooded every now and then.
Peter Paul Klapwick is a miller at Kinderdijk, the largest collection of working vintage windmills in Holland. His windmill was built in 1740.
So the windmills in 1450, when they were introduced, enabled us to live in areas where before we couldn't live. So when we started building dikes, we needed windmills to pump out all the rainwater and all the water coming up from the ground.
They are iconic and quaint now. But in their day, they were the state-of-the-art in flood control technology.
On the outside here are the 4 sails, 2 beams holding 4 sails, and then if the sails turn, the wheel will turn, this will start spinning. And the screw gets turned by the wind.
It is an Archimedean screw that can lift water up. As the windmills turned, they turned uninhabitable marshes into lush farmland called polders. The Dutch have not stopped pumping their polders dry ever since. They don't have a choice. A quarter of the country sits below sea level.
So
No idea that's how windmills worked. I thought it had something to do with energy, but that's so fascinating. I had no idea.
Well, so that's the thing is, so these windmills, I don't know why I had that in my mind. Like I said, it was maybe this background of being in Iowa for a while and being around these Dutch windmills. But it just, to me, it was such a powerful message of like, um, that behind the scenes of what's happening in that windmill, right? So just like, here's the problem that these farmers had. The land is flooded and they've got to fix this so that they can farm it. And I think that is often what happens to us with content. It's like there's so much, we're just flooded with like the ideas or the demands to get that content out there, and it just feels overwhelming. But what we need is that the inner workings. Like I love that inside of that windmill and seeing those gears and seeing how, in my mind, that's so much of what we're doing behind the scenes with content.
Mm-hmm.
And what people see on the outside is this beautiful green, lush farmland and this beautiful windmill. But all of that was what was going on inside of there. So it's this behind the scenes thing that people don't even, you see great content out there and you don't realize all of the stuff that's going on behind the scenes,
Mm-hmm.
right?
I feel like everybody who's in marketing on this is listening to this can relate to that.
Yeah,
Exactly.
sure. Yeah. And then, like you said, I thought windmills generated power, right? Like so
Yeah.
And they do, right? They generate power, they generate electricity, they, there's different things, functions that windmills have. And not every windmill is the same. Like all these windmills are different and they don't have to be the same, but they're all extremely powerful and have their own purpose. So I don't know, Hannah. I don't know if it's better to say an engine or a windmill, but
I love the windmill. I'm a fan of the windmill. I think you should change it. I think it needs to be a windmill from here on out.
I like the windmill. So this is how I see these gears all kind of working together within our own content windmill. All of these pieces work together. And I think a lot of times we do a speaking engagement and we did it, it's done, that's it, right? But or I was on a podcast and like I did that and let the podcast host do the promotion of it and get me out there, right? Like so we can have that perspective, or we can think of all of these different ways that these things work together. So one of the examples for like a website company is maybe they do website design for e-commerce companies. And so a website design company might want to partner with organizations that reach that target audience of e-commerce companies, whether it's they sponsorship or they do in-person events, or whatever those all those organizations kind of have their own little things that they do, right? But getting connected with those, and then those can lead to maybe podcast opportunities, podcast interviews, or live speaking engagements. The live speaking engagements, you know, it's an in-person event. It may or may not be recorded, but it could be the kind of thing that you post on social media, several times before the event, during the event, after the event, which establishes your credibility as, the speaker, this subject matter expert, right? And then if it is recorded, and this is what we do with all of our recordings. So like, this is a perfect example. You and I are here talking about content windmills, and we have this recorded, right? So we then put this on social, or on YouTube and social media, but we put it on YouTube. And then so we don't just have, and we were talking about this earlier, Hannah, that we don't just have the people that are in this live audience listening to this presentation, but we're able to reach by putting everything that we can on YouTube. We're reaching a wider audience right there, just having it, putting it out there. I built out our YouTube channel about 5 years ago, and when we started that, I started recording everything that everything I could possibly record. I was recording and putting it onto YouTube. And after a while, we started noticing that some of our videos were getting picked up by Google search results. So we were getting picked up in SERPs for certain topics. So people were searching for, like virtual CFO, and our videos were coming up in those search results. So those videos were getting thousands of views, days, weeks, months, years after we had done the video. But just by putting it on YouTube, we were getting, way more views than we would have otherwise. And then we take those and we turn those into more content. So not just having the one video that goes out, but then taking that and doing different things. And I'll talk about that in just a second. But these are all, so all of these things work together and should never be seen as just like a one-time thing. Like, I did a blog, I put a blog out there, I published it, it's done, right? The blog post can be posted to social media, which most people probably do, but it can be posted multiple times on social media. It can be shared in different ways. So I want to give, so here's an example of, like, let's say this webinar specifically. So you and I are on here, we're doing this webinar. We try to turn everything that we do, like, not only do we put it on YouTube and share it that way, but then we also will turn it into article content. So a 1-hour webinar like this, we might be able to turn it into one article. We might be able to turn it into 2 or 3 articles. It depends on kind of the topics that we cover throughout the time together. But they can be, various articles that we can put out there, whether we publish it on our own blog or publish it with one of those partner organizations that we were talking about on the last slide. We can share it to them, get a link back to our website, which helps us with our SEO. We can share it in a newsletter. So we can share the webinar itself, a link to that webinar on YouTube. In our newsletter, we can also share that article that articles that we've created to our newsletter. Then we also have the social media aspect of before and after, like I talked about with the speaking events, doing that not just with speaking events, but podcast interviews, webinars, and kind of building the hype for them and sharing them after the fact, and video clips that we create from so we'll do an hour video, and then we'll turn it into short clips to get like capture people's attention online. And I'll talk through a little bit of the tools that we use. So we're not just watching. We used to watch the entire video, and a person would go through and find the clips, and now we have a lot more efficient tools with all the AI.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about AI, especially thinking about the articles and blogs, especially like being able to implement that, even just with like a ChatGPT type free solution, in terms of being able to implement that when you walk away from here today, if you've got video content that you could plug in and get something out of.
Yeah.
I have a question. You may want to cover it now, or you may want to wait, that came through in the Q&A. As a DIY owner who wants to set up their own windmill, what advice would you give for the next 3 steps to start doing that now?
Okay, so let's leave this question up here. So I think I'm going to cover this a little bit later, and I want to make sure that, yeah. So, but that gives me a specific question to remember when I get to that. So yeah, so all of these things, these are the ways that we can repurpose our content to get a lot more kind of reach out of that one webinar that we did. So you and I spent an hour together, but here's all of these different ways that we can get that content out there. And as a marketing firm owner, you're giving this presentation, don't ever just walk away from a presentation and just let that be all you do with it, or
Mhm.
even just like, I posted to social media, I did that, but there's all these different ways that we can get that out there. So Hannah, I use my example here. So we've got, so not only do you host this webinar, but you also have guested on our Modern CPA Success Show, in addition
Mhm.
to the Young CPA Success Show that you host. This specific example is from the Modern CPA Success Show. So, the web or the podcast itself happened, right? We had a guest on, and you and Tom were the co-hosts. That then got turned into an article. So what you covered in that got turned into an article that was written by you. Then we have an Instagram post and then a video clip. So the video clip is showing Geraldine Carter, who was our guest on that episode. And the video clip might be a 1-minute clip, but it can be used in various formats. So we can put that on TikTok, on YouTube, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, Instagram Stories, all of these places. So that one little clip is just like a minute, but the purpose of it is to capture somebody's attention in that 1
Mhm.
minute, something that really makes them go, I want to, hear more about that. And then to go
Mhm.
back and to watch the full video. So this is just a few pieces of content. Here's a little more of an example. Here's the Young CPA Success Show,
Mhm.
Hannah's baby. So this is the one that you host. And so this was another episode where we then turned it into the second row there is Instagram posts I say Instagram, those were designed for Instagram. We can then post them also on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter, we can put them in all the
Sure.
places, but some different ways that we do it. So the middle one is a quote from our guest. The top one is like a kind of an audio clip. The bottom one is a video clip. So different ways that we can capture people's attention. And then an article that can be drafted out of that episode, another video clip that can be used not in the feed, but on stories or reels,
Mhm.
shorts, all of those things. And then the social media post. So just giving one example of a social media post, but it can be turned into multiple multiple posts in all these different ways. So like you posted this, talking about the episode. Again, you can also share, so it can go on the company feed, it can go on your personal feed, to share all these different things. So now what? We let it just die where it is. I mean, there was obviously a lot of use out of that one episode that we did, right? Like went a lot of places. But I think often we can now walk away and go, okay, I put it out there, I blasted it all over social media, and I wrote an article, and I had it go in the blog, and I put it in the newsletter, and all of that, right? So one of the things that, I'm going to get into like a few different examples of ways that we can continue to get that content out there after that kind of initial campaign or that initial effort, right? If the content is not time sensitive, if it's not something where you're talking about, something that ends, right? But like
Mhm.
it's not time sensitive. It's content that can be valuable to somebody today, tomorrow, a year from now, whenever.
Mhm.
There's other ways that we can extend its life, and continue to create efficiencies with our content. So it's not about just creating the content, but how we store it, how we showcase it, how we sustain it long term. So a few of the ways that we can extend the life of that content. This is an example of our resources page. So we have a resources page. Visitors can then, where'd my mouse go? There it is. Can filter that by the different type, so if I want to watch a webinar, I want to read an article, I want to learn about a new book that I might want to read on the topic, we can, put in whatever kind of filters that the visitor might want to filter down to get to the type of content that they want to see. So a resources page can be helpful. A content library. So this is something that my team we're still developing, but that we've created so we can use in different ways. This is, like I said, some of that evergreen content where it's like these are posts that will still be found valuable down the road by mainly creative agency owners or leadership. So these articles, we have now started kind of a library, a catalog of the different topics. So whether it's they're looking to hire new talent, they are thinking about business development, operations, all of these different things. This allows us to filter that content, to look at the primary pain point that they're having. So right now we're using this kind of internally, but also going back to when I was talking about the partnerships and having those partnerships with organizations that reach your target audience. This content library allows us to filter down to by those, those pain points, those categories, and get the content that will speak directly to the companies that are part of that that organization, right? So the organization might say, one of the things that our clients are currently experiencing is, you know, it, they want to grow, right? And they're having challenges with growth, whatever those challenges are, right? They can bring that to our attention. We can easily pull up a handful of articles that we can share with them, help them, publish that in their newsletter, share that with their target audience, whatever that looks like. So we started doing this. Like I said, we're still looking for ways to maximize the use of this, but it's a way that we can kind of catalog all of that content.
As an
And that's,
accountant, like I love a good spreadsheet. So
yeah,
I'm really
well, of course, you're an
excited
accountant.
that y'all have this. Within this, though, that made me wonder, how are you tracking what is working? Like maybe this post got a lot of engagement and it had a lot of reach. So maybe we need to duplicate this type of content. So from a metrics perspective, because obviously, that's how my brain works,
Right.
how is that tracked? Are you keeping up with that in some way?
Yeah, so probably, anyone putting out content probably has analytics in some format, right? So we actually use HubSpot for our blog, and so we can get the analytics on our posts and see, what is resonating with people. One thing, to note, having something like this where you can pull something up easily, and it's not just living in somebody's brain, because that's what, often happens is that, like you just go, oh yeah, I remember we did an article on that topic one time, and go and search for it, right? But when you're able to filter and pull something up, you might have content that you put out, maybe 3 years ago that for whatever reason wasn't, got whatever traffic it got, but it may be more timely at a different time. If right now with the way that the economy is, or the current challenges that agencies are facing, they may find an article you wrote 3 months or 3 years ago more relevant now than they did 3 years ago, right? And
Sure,
so
yeah.
being able to reach them. So you can see in those analytics, but also just keeping in mind that things can hit at different times too. So like we'll see, we had an article once that, like I said, it took a while, and then all of a sudden we were just getting thousands and thousands of views on this article, and we were like, what is going on? And it's an annual cycle where that article comes back up annually. So we can see that in the numbers. Like we know what's going on that time of year that people are searching for it and finding it. So, always be looking at those numbers too, to see, your analytics, to see what is resonating with people, and that might be an opportunity for writing more content and
Right,
publishing
yeah.
it around that time of year on that particular topic. One other thing that, example of what we created to kind of help with that kind of regeneration of our content over time is an evergreen content list. So I had started this, and this is one of those things when it was just me and everything was in my head. And I was like, I want to be able to reshare content over time on social media. And, sometimes you just like run out of ideas, right? Like, I don't know what to post this week, especially when you're doing it by yourself. You're like, I have 5 million other things to do. I don't know what to share, right? So this evergreen content list is the same idea as that content library, where it's like, these are the things that we can be sharing on social media regularly. And I built this, and then when I was able to hire team members, I was able to pass this on. So it wasn't just living in my head. They didn't have to relearn the system. This was like, oh, okay. So if I have a day where I'm just like, I have no idea what to post, I can pull one of these and maybe put a fresh spin on the content. Like we can turn it into a different type of post than what we've done in the past. And it's not just, a little blurb and a link, but like, maybe we turn it into a carousel post, or, can we create a video out of this content and share it, So having those resources in place to be able to repurpose your content, when it makes sense to do that. Um, so toolbox. So I mentioned that I was gonna share this. We find that whenever we share our toolbox, people get really excited to have access have access to this. So I wanted a
Mhm.
slide where it's just like, here's all the things, right? And we will send out the slides. So we will share this with you. You'll have access to this specific slide. But these are all the tools that my team uses now. So I mentioned HubSpot, that's our CRM, that's where our blog lives and where we get our analytics. Um, we record things in, so we started with always recording everything in Zoom, and then including our podcast episodes. And then we now use StreamYard to record our podcasts. When we were talking about, getting those video clips and you know, AI and how it helps with
Mhm.
that. So Pod Squeeze and Video AI are two of the tools we use with any of our videos. Well, Pod Squeeze for our podcast, that will help with creating like the description, some sample social media posts, all of the like timestamps on certain topics in the conversation. Video AI is the one that we can use to pull clips. So this hour-long video that you and I are doing, once it goes on YouTube, I can then put it into Video AI, and within about 5 minutes, it will give me probably at least 25 clips that I
What
can
a
then pull
time
from that.
saver. Like, that's
Right.
crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And they're not always perfect. I mean, AI is not perfect, right? But it gives you like something to focus on. So sometimes you might take
Mhm.
those 25 and, throw away 10 of them, but now you've got 15 still that you can use. And you can then format the video in there. You can put captions in there. Like I said, I used to manually watch every one of our videos and write down the timestamps of the clip I wanted to cut. And then, I mean, it saves so much time and comes up with things that maybe I didn't even catch, like,
Sure,
oh, I
yeah.
wasn't thinking that in that moment, but that is a good clip. Um, and then, some of our other tools later for social media scheduling, Canva for actually, we're presenting this in Canva right now. So for
Mhm.
our design, and then Simplecast for getting our podcast out there to not just one platform, but to all the platforms. Zapier for automation, ClickUp for project management, task management. Did I cover them all? Oh, Clearview Social is one too that we just started using about a year ago, which, if you are a team of more than one, the Clearview Social helps you get your content into the hands of your team members who may want to share. What I found here at Summit is that we have a lot of people who want to share on social
Mhm.
media. They want to be active, but they also don't know what to say. They don't necessarily want to spend the time coming up with the content. They, maybe don't like really want to put themselves out there, but like they're willing to share. They just don't know where to start, right? So Clearview Social allows us, my team will go through and create posts for them. And, I don't know how many we do in a week, but it might be like a dozen where it's like, pick what you want and share what you want and what you're comfortable sharing, and you can change the blurb, to what you want it to say, but it just gives them a starting point. And some people will go in and just share exactly what we give them, or other people will change it up a little bit. But it's a really handy tool for just making it easy for the people who want to share company news or company articles, or those kinds of things, and they just really don't know how to do it themselves. They
Mhm.
don't want to spend the time on it. So that's been a great tool for us. Yeah, and I think we covered everything there.
So how are you keeping up? Because we live obviously in a world where AI is changing these tools on probably a daily basis. I think it's safe to say. So how are you keeping up with what's new and staying ahead of that and staying on top of it for your toolbox?
I think some of it is so. I'm looking at these tools and going, okay, so how did we come up with these? Because video AI is pretty new for us. We probably
Mhm.
started that within the last, I don't know, 4 to 6 months. And that came from, with AI, I just started watching videos myself and going
Mhm.
like, what are the tools that are out there, and I discovered that on a video that was talking about some AI tools. I'm like, I've never heard of this. This is amazing. This saves me so much time. So watching, keeping up with those updates and things, for me, I just try to do it like while I'm eating lunch, I'll watch a YouTube video, right? And keep up with
Yeah.
just what are those new things, and then I'll make notes, and then, like I said, I'm fortunate I have a team now, so then I can say, "Hey, check this out,"
Yeah.
and then they'll go test it out, right?
Yes.
It used to be me, and that took more time, but now I can share that with the team, and we all have a mindset of like wanting to try new things, and that's
Yeah.
it's fun
Being
to do that.
curious.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely, yeah. So and then Pod Squeeze similarly, earlier this year, we were using a different tool, but we were talking with somebody at a marketing conference, and they were like, "I can't believe you've never heard of this. You're not using this?" And we were like, "Well, we are now." So we started using that. So a lot of it just comes from, talking to people, doing research, but I don't mean like spending tons of time researching, just,
Sure.
having your eyes open for like what are those tools that I could be using, especially with AI, like you said. I think you've got to stay on top of what are those newest tools. You get kind of into the one that you're using and then find out that there's like, tons of other things out there that you could be trying. You can waste a lot of time trying different things, but
Absolutely.
just being aware of, what else is out there. What are people talking about right now? What are the things
Mhm.
that, if you are watching YouTube and just kind of watching for um, what are those big things that people are using right now, and just being open to exploring those and checking them out.
Sure.
Um, so going back to the question that we had about, what are those next 3 steps, that somebody can start doing right now? I I cannot stress enough. I was doing all of this by myself, and I probably was not doing a lot of it very well, but I was doing it, right? And
Mhm.
we didn't have the AI tools, so I was watching every video and clipping it up myself and doing the social media, um, and then when I was able to, I'm going to just skip down to number 2 and then I'll come back to number 1. But when I was able to, then I was able to hire somebody on virtual coworker, and I cannot recommend virtual coworker enough. It's a virtual assistant, um, sourcing service. I don't
Hmm.
know, so you can go to them, and when I say virtual assistant, um, they the virtual assistants they have a huge range of skill sets, right?
Mhm.
So anytime now that I need somebody in a different area, I can go in. It's not every one of them is a virtual assistant. You can find the social media manager, you can find technical support, you can find a developer for your website. I mean, there's all these very specific things that people can help with. So I love virtual coworker. That has helped us. We have now, oh, maybe just one team member from virtual coworker. We've actually hired people through virtual coworker and hired them out of the agency. So we've been able to actually hire them on our team. But we have one active person right now through virtual coworker, and I again love that service. We also hire people through Upwork. So when I got to a point where like I cannot write 3 articles a week, this is just too much, I was able to go to Upwork, hire a writer, and hire people who specifically fit that need, that I had. We currently work with 3 writers on Upwork. So we have writers that we need an article, we assign it to them, and they know our content very well. They know our audience, and have a great relationship there. Fiverr I haven't worked with as much, but we do kind of like one-off projects with like video or specific things that we need. We have used Fiverr for that. Um, so as far as next 3 steps, I would say, I think one of the biggest things, if you are doing it yourself, identifying what are those things that you need help with. Maybe you don't have the budget for them now, but I always like to have a wish list of like, these are the things that I would hire somebody to do when
Mhm.
I, have the opportunity to do that. And identifying what are those things that you could use help with, and hiring it if you have the budget, hiring that out, especially like Upwork. Like if it's just like, it's going to take me 3 hours to write an article, find a writer at Upwork who you can outsource that to, and save yourself that 3 hours, and get those articles, because
Mhm.
that is a big time suck for people who aren't writers, especially,
Sure.
or
Yeah.
even if you like writing but you're just super busy, just identifying what are those things that I can take off of my plate, give to somebody else. And I think the more that you can delegate to people, the more that you start realizing like, oh, okay, like I can do these things. I just needed some help with those areas that I was struggling with, right?
Mhm.
Um, these three things above are 4 things above. I can't count. Number 1. So these are ways that you can kind of also kind of outsource, but outsourcing to get more reach. Listen Notes is one that so again, when I was doing this myself, I was doing research on Listen Notes for podcast episodes. So I had, Jody Grundon, our co-founder, this is the person I want to get on these podcasts. And I would do research on Listen Notes and reach out to the podcast to get him on. So it's a fairly simple, budget conscious way of doing it. You can DIY with Listen Notes. Also with Podmatch, similar idea. You can find podcasts to get on. And if you have a podcast, you can find podcast guests on Podmatch, kind of the DIY side over here. Interview Valet was then kind of the next step up, when we were able to then say, okay, we just need somebody to do the work for us and do the research on these podcasts and get us out there, right? So Interview Valet is an interview or a podcast sourcing platform where they're going to find the podcasts that are going to help you reach your target audience, and they
Mhm.
put together, not a sales sheet, but a sheet, that has your information on it, and they reach out to the podcast for you, help you get that scheduled. Fantastic service if you have the budget for it. It's not a DIY. It's definitely an investment, but if you have the budget for it, it's a great service to use if you really want to get out on podcasts. And then Haro. So I always say Haro. I think other people say Harrow. So I just can't get myself to say
Tomato,
Harrow.
tomato.
I know that is, yes. But Haro is one where so you can sign up for topics, and you'll get an email. You can get 3 emails a day that have kind of a list of media opportunities. So one of the examples is, this is something that you can use to get, you can get interviewed, you can get on, an art, you can submit an article. It just depends on what the need of the person that's looking for a resource. There's different things that they need, but you kind of keep an eye on it in your email, and then follow up on the ones that are a good fit for you. One of the things that this led to for us was we had an opportunity to do an interview that came from a Haro email. We followed up, did the interview, and the reporter who did the interview was actually doing research for an author, and we ended up getting mentioned in the book Upstream by Dan Heath,
Oh,
because
neat.
the researcher had kind of heard our story through this other project she was working on through Haro, and then was like, this is a great fit for this book I'm working on. And it was just super exciting to have that. I don't know if you've read any Dan Heath books, but he's amazing, and I was very excited. I thought that was just like really cool to be mentioned in one of his books. So these are just, I'm like just kind of throwing all of these things out there, but I think that for an agency owner, or if you're the marketing team leader, or whatever your role is there, I think the most important thing is to start where you are, and to just, I think that it can be overwhelming. If you think back to that slide with the woman pulling her hair out and all these things that we can be doing, I probably didn't help in saying all of these things you can be doing, right? But I think the most important thing to do is to say, what can I do right now with what I have? And that, whether it's doing it myself, hiring some help, but making a plan of like, and committing to this is what I'm going to do. So you don't have to do a blog post every single day. You can commit to one a month, right?
Mhm.
But committing to that one a month gives you a starting point, and then saying, what can I do with this one blog post a month? What are the pieces that I can put into place from here? And going back to that toolbox video that slide that I shared, how can I maximize AI tools, other software programs to get these things out there and to kind of start creating that windmill internally. And going back to that question again of like, what are those 3 steps? So like, you know, committing to what is reasonable for you to do now, outsourcing what you're able to outsource to be more efficient with your own time, and then starting to create the plan for what are those things that I'm going to start doing with this content, and just starting that process. And as you have time to hire more people or to delegate more to the team that you have, just growing that and being consistent with what you have. Again, I was one person 6 years ago. I now have a team of 8 people. That was exactly what I did. Is I started doing it all myself, and then delegating and growing what we had and creating those gears within the windmill as we were able to grow that over time.
Mhm. And I feel like maybe you agree with this, but looking at that list of all the things, like you said, like the woman with her hands in her hair, just like all the things that you can do can also be very overwhelming if you don't know who you're trying to reach to. Because if you're trying to cast a net just to get like anybody and everybody in terms of not understanding your market, that probably is much more overwhelming than if you fully understand who you're trying to talk to through all those different avenues that were on that slide.
Yeah, so good point. And we didn't talk about, focusing in on your target audience, but I will say I did a webinar 2 weeks ago on our YouTube channel that you can catch, after the fact, talking about the importance of having a niche. So if that's something that you want to explore more, definitely go back and watch that video. We were speaking to an accounting community in that particular webinar, but I think it's relevant for any business owner, any marketing team in identifying who you want to target and focusing in on that specific audience.
Mhm.
So
Awesome.
Hannah, I will pass it over to you and let you wrap up here with our wrap-up slides.
Yes, thank you so much for all of that. I could probably talk to you for another few hours about
Hey,
all of
let's do
this.
it.
I find it so fascinating and I just love it. And I love that like I get to be a part of it in this way and in this role. So that's really exciting for me. But if you'd like to keep learning, we do have a suite of podcasts, one of those being the Virtual CPA Success Show, which directly speaks to the things that are going on in the digital agency world as an owner. I actually have a client who I recommended this podcast to this week, and she told me yesterday, she was like, I've already sent this to my marketing girl. I've already
Awesome.
sent this to this person in my organization. So there's a lot of valuable content that you can keep listening to on the podcast, which also stream to our YouTube channel. You can keep learning by subscribing to our blog as well. Like Kelly said, those articles that she's talking about that are a spinoff from the webinars, from the podcast, from the different types of marketing efforts that we have also land on our blog. If that's more of your type of thing and you'd rather read it instead of listening to it, there's an opportunity for you to subscribe and keep learning there as well. And then finally, you will get the slide with this if you don't have time to put your phone up to the screen and grab the QR code for this. But we do invite you to download. This is a free resource for you. It's the role of dynamic forecasting in ensuring business growth. So take full advantage of that and download this and take a read. And I think you're going to get a lot of value from that as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Hannah. Thanks for having
Thank
me
you so
on. And
much.
yeah, I could talk to you for hours on this topic. So happy to come back anytime and talk about more marketing topics. And if there's topics that our audience specifically wants to hear more about, we'd love for you to put that in the comments, email us. Share with us, and we're happy to explore further.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kelly.
Thank you.